Voting day, primary day, ladies and gentlemen. Voters across Minnesota are heading to the polls today for the state's primary election. So this is setting the stage. We are the roadies at ACDACA, as the Australians call them, ACDC. We are, plugging in the amps. We are running the chords. We are, bringing out the guitars, doing all that shit. And we are getting ready. We are setting the stage for the high-stakes battle of the governor's office this fall. We got a bunch of elections happening because obviously it's the midterms, but the governor's race is the primary one that we're focusing on. We have the incumbent governor, Tim Walz, stepping down after two solid, then pretty rough, a solid start, pretty rough finish. I'm going to be honest with you. This is the gymnast who grabs the bar, swings around it 5 or 6 times, flings off to stick the landing, and then lands on their neck. That's not a great way to finish it off. He might be paralyzed. We don't know. And never mind. He sat up pretty quickly, but I think that he's just got a concussion. It's tough. He'll be waddling around for a while, but the moment that he gets his towel, the moment that he steps aside, he clears his head, he's going to feel all right. I promise you. And he might even be back by 2028. We don't know. But okay, so after the 2 terms with Tim Walz, both major parties are now charting new directions to lead the state. And on the Democratic side, U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar is essentially the designated figure. She is the party's presumptive nominee. She is seeking to transition from Capitol Hill to the state capitol. She obviously was the senator. Klobuchar has campaigned on her deep legislative record. As she was like, I've been on SNL. What more do you need from me? Rachel Dratch, is that her name? She played me. Nobody knows her name, but everybody knows Debbie Downer. Debbie Downer played me. Guys, this is the most recognition that the state of Minnesota has gotten on that program in years. And let's be honest, across the world, at least since 1996, nobody's cared about us. Nobody liked the TV show Fargo as much as they like the movie, let's be honest. So, broad statewide appeal is also what she's saying that she has, pledging to leverage her federal experience to bolster local economies. She's going to strengthen the state oversight in order to avoid fraud like we've had over the last few years, and also support agricultural industry sectors across Minnesota. Meanwhile, a crowded 7-candidate Republican primary is it's pretty tough for a lot of people. The GOP field is led by 3 key frontrunners: the Speaker Lisa Damoth, House Speaker, we should make it clear, MyPillow CEO, Chief Executive Officer Mike Lindell, and Healthcare Executive Kendall Qualls. I don't think he's got it. I think it's either the woman or Mike Lindell. Let's be honest. We need a GOP Kamala Harris one day, and she could be a solid one. She's she's decently young. Lisa Damoth age. Come on, give me it real quick. She is only 59 years old. You know what I mean? That she could be a Kamala type. The candidates have also offered really different visions for the party's future. They're debating aggressive tax cuts, regulatory rollbacks, strict government spending limits to win over primary voters, and the primary winner will immediately step into the general election campaign heading towards November. The governor's mansion is on the line. The national political observers are watching Minnesota closely as a key Midwest indicator for the voter enthusiasm and party alignment ahead of the fall elections, because they see us as very representative. They see us as, you know what I mean, a place where things are happening. Ever since George Floyd, had his whole situation, and you know what I mean. He had a bit of a River Phoenix moment. Let's just call it that. It was a moment outside the Viper, except it wasn't the Viper. It wasn't a cool nightclub on Sunset in Hollywood. It was unfortunately just this poor gas station that has since been, not the gas station that was across the street, but this poor little food stand. Not really a food stand. It's kind of a general market. I know. I bought a dildo bong there, so I have a pretty decent. There's a scale to the things that they sell there. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's pretty impressive stock. But in general, it's not the same type of situation, but it definitely is one to win over the attention of a lot of people. The nation is kind of watching us ever since then.
Tomorrow, voters will head to the polls for primary day with key races for U.S. Senate and governor on the ballot. Political reporter Danny Spiewak here to tell us about that governor's race right now. Hi, Danny.
Hey, Rena, on the DFL side, there's very little suspense, obviously. We know that Senator Amy Klobuchar is going to be the nominee in November after she stepped up to run in Governor Walz's place. But it's a Republican side that we're watching on Tuesday. It's really interesting. 3 main candidates running for the right to oppose Klobuchar are House Speaker Lisa Damon, businessman Kendall Qualls, and MyPillow founder Mike Lindell. This is truly a fascinating race that has taken some twists and turns in recent months. Damon's the one that leads in fundraising and has the most political experience. Qualls has the state party's endorsement, and Lindell has President Trump's endorsement. We've had a chance to talk with all of them in recent months about why they think they should win the nomination.
What we want to bring to Minnesota is just making it stronger, better, that comeback that is so desperately needed, reducing taxes, ending fraud once and for all.
To help clean up St. Paul. That's number one. Clean up the fraud, clean up the mess. The taxes are out of control. But how do we get back to making sure that the state thrives economically?
Tens of thousands of people, it's like 60,000 more people have left Minnesota than have come back in the last 4 years. We've got to change that. People can't afford to live here anymore.
What I like about Mike Lindell, what I like about him, and I know many people might not consider this to be a positive, I do because I'm open-minded. He always sounds like he's out of breath. Why do I like this? Because it communicates this old man, this old grandpa energy. You kind of want to, trust him with your life.
We're going to have much more on the governor's race coming up tonight at 6. And at 5, we'll dive into the DFL Senate race between Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan and Congresswoman Angie Craig.
I cannot wait. I will actually update, you know how YouTube does posts or whatever? I'll post about whoever we actually end up seeing win. It's going to be curious. I'm going to keep an eye on the election results tonight. It's kind of like a football game for me. I'm very excited. I'm going to have, whatever it is what do people eat? I'm going to have like kettle chips. That sounds great. And then I'll watch the election results pour in. Let's hear a little teensy bit more about these before we head out.
Good morning, guys. And it has been pretty busy. We've seen a pretty steady stream of voters out here this morning. And even though the polls have only been open for just about an hour, Minnesota has actually already set a new record for voter turnout.
Nice.
The Secretary of State says that, about 200,000 ballots have already been returned in early voting. That is the most for a non-presidential election year. And today, federal election officials were told from the Department of Justice will be outside some polling places in both Hennepin and Ramsey counties, not inside. That process, by the way, they say not uncommon, and it was done during the Michigan primary just last week. But today, staff from the Minnesota Attorney General's office says that they'll be watching the observers to make sure they follow the rules.
This is something that's been done for multiple election cycles under multiple presidential administrations for a very narrow purpose to enforce provisions of the Voting Rights Act. So we feel good that this will be uneventful and that our polling places will, as always, be an island of calm. That is our goal.
Now, there will be 7 teams, we're told, of DOJ observers in Minnesota today. Those federal monitors, by the way, expected to be in plain clothes. They may try to interview voters about their voting experience after they have left those polling places. But, of course, they must stay at least 100 feet away. Polls, by the way, have been open since 7 a.m. They stay open till 8 o'clock tonight. Minnesota is an open primary state, so voters do not have to declare a party. But this is important. You can only vote for candidates within a single party, Republican or Democrat or Independent. Otherwise, your votes will not count. This morning, voters tell me they wanted to make sure that they had a say in some of the most closely watched primaries and statewide races, including the Democratic race for U.S. Senate and who will advance to be the Republican candidate for governor.
I just think with everything that's going on, I want to use my vote as much as I possibly can. So I'm not even sure if I voted in a primary before. So this, I think, is my first one. Just wanted to make sure I get it in, and it's usually really fast here. So,
well, I think just all of the races really. It's obviously we have been a hot topic in the national news, especially around our elections.
Have we?
So it's just really important for me to make sure that my voice was heard. So I would encourage everybody else to make sure too, because we have some tight races going on in our state, and every vote counts.
I can't wait to see how it turns out, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to keep an eye on it for you because we honestly have nothing better to do. There is Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Everybody's kind of forgetting a teensy bit about her. She is running for the Senate. She is a Senate candidate. She wanted to step away from the governorship because maybe people would have a bad taste in her mouth, especially due to her association with Governor Walz. And moderate candidate Angie Craig is also facing off against her currently right now. They want the same position, which is the Senate candidate for Minnesota, and I have no idea as to which one is going to receive it. I think that her interview skills are minimal. I think, and this is, I think that she has an image problem in general. I think the goofy big glasses are very cartoony. I think that her, excessive jewelry, much like the ones that she often wears from her ears, like these big ass like plus sign ones that she's wearing in this interview.
So much for being here, Lieutenant Governor. It's just one day until Election Day. What is your closing message to voters heading into the polls tomorrow?
What is it?
So this entire campaign has been about the many versus the money. I am part of the many, and I'm betting on us. I haven't taken a dime of corporate PAC money, and the same can't be said for my opponent. This is the most expensive Senate primary in Minnesota history. About $20 million has come in against us so far.
All right, so also this is a thing that's also happening right here. Unfortunately, the mainstream and the higher powers that be, the ones that want to move power with their money, they will also occasionally, and this is kind of a psyop, this is a kind of a thing to play into, like, oh, we're gonna magic trick you. If they really want Peggy Flanagan to win, if they know that this woman, she was already a servant to Tim Walz's administration, she's likely to go along with the deep state and their plans. She's likely to, sign off on anything that's major, anything that kind of can either, she can write off excuses very well. She's a mouthpiece. You know what I mean? She's a shill. She's a spook. Unfortunately, she's a commoner. She's very, very experienced. But what does that mean? Also very, very compromised. Angie Craig, not to say that she's any different, but they know that she is deeply unpopular. They know that the Israel thing is very unpopular. They need to sever the ties that Americans have with Israel, because the Americans need to largely be on the side of the Christians. That's going to cause, civil wars. That's going to, they want race war. They want race war based on your religion. That is the plan for World War III eventually. But listen, Angie Craig is that candidate where they need to make it appear as though Americans are rejecting Israel, which at large they are. But unfortunately, some people take it to the extent of true hatred of like people that are Jewish. Some people take it to the idea of like Judaism, being the thing that condemns people to death. I'm one to believe that they can be salvaged. I'm one to believe that Christians can prevent themselves from falling down these rabbit holes. I'm one to believe that anybody can be rehabilitated of their mind. I'm one to believe that religion isn't great for society at large. I'm not one to be on the side of any of them, because I know ultimately each of them do lead up to the same thing, which is a global network of pedophilia. Unfortunately, that's not something that we all want to be real. It's not a reality we all wanted to call home, but it's something we all wake up and live in every single day. Angie Craig, her loss will be symbolic, yes, of like the Americans rejecting the Israeli caucus and the Israeli side of things, but this is also going to service their future. This is unfortunately also playing right into the hand of the idea being we're going to make it appear as though Americans are rejecting Israel at large. Unfortunately, that's not the case for a lot of people. Some of them are still fundamentalist Christians who believe that Israel, that comes to them in their dreams. And we're having this, backwards swing where, unfortunately, in rejection of people's ties to Judaism, which is maybe founded in a good thing. I don't believe that Judaism is anything to idolize. I also believe it's something to be rejected and kind of destroyed from the world. I believe that I believe it on the same level as Scientology, Islam, and Christianity. But the Peggy Flanagan, she is not a opposition of the money. She says this is about the many versus the money. This is about choosing the least bad out of, honestly, it boils back to the idea that American elections are always choosing the worst of two options. God, I'm awful with my words today, but that's perfectly fine. You know exactly what I'm trying to say. Peggy Flanagan she is the least compromised, or at least for our American interests. She is, not taking money from Israel, but she's taking money from the people that she goes to rituals with. She's taking money from the people that she goes to these high-profile events with. She's just as compromised as this Angie Craig figure, but she's tied in more so to the American branch. Angie Craig more so to the Israeli branch. So, in other words, no matter who you're voting for in this case, you are voting for a deep state candidate who's going to service their image more so than they're going to service the wants and needs of Minnesotans.
I can tell you is that I'm running to make sure that people can afford the lives they want to live. I want to get big money out of our politics, and I want to fight for, things like Medicare for all, so that people aren't just paying for health insurance, but actually have access to health care.
You talk about this race being about money. The Congresswoman's campaign has spent significantly more money than your own, and you've suggested that she's bought and paid for by special interests. Do you think that kind of attack, though, makes it harder to unify Democrats, even if you win, especially those who hold similar positions than the Congresswoman?
Well, I would say this. I think this is something that you're seeing all across the country, that, individuals know that corporate PACs, special interests, have tremendous influence in our politics. And I think, they've got great representation. It's the rest of us who need it. I think that's the root of so many things that we're facing in this country. Health insurance companies are funding my opponent, and I support Medicare for all, and she doesn't. The crypto industry has weighed in this race.
But that's the thing, is you're also pitching an idea that will never work. Both of you are pitching bad ideas.
We need to have some pretty serious regulations on crypto, and Congresswoman Craig was the only Minnesota Democrat to vote for the crypto bill that has allowed Donald Trump to enrich himself, to over
because Angie Craig is also compromised. Yes, agreed, but so are you, unfortunately.
$1 billion in his meme coin from the Oval Office.
Agreed.
So I just think that people are ready, to be beholden only to the voters and no one else. And the best way to end Citizens United is to ensure that we are running strong grassroots, people-powered campaigns and winning. That's what we've done, and that's what I hope to do tomorrow.
Well, I hope it goes well for you, Miss Flanagan. I don't know whether or not it will, but only time will tell.